Alright, good morning dudes. Today we're doing something a little different than what I usually do on the channel. We're going to be hardening and tempering this blade. Now this is a blade that I made out of 1095 steel. It was mostly a stock removal knife, so I basically just bought an 1/8 inch bar of 1095 steel and traced the design and cut it out and then ground in my bevels. And next it needs to be normalized, which means we're going to heat it up to a non-magnetic temperature and then let it air cool. And what this does is kind of gets the grain structure kind of relaxed, if you will. It takes out any stresses that were put into the steel while I was grinding and cutting on it. It basically gets the grain structure back to how it was when it first arrived, and this came annealed. So that's what we're going to do first. I'm going to fire up the forge here. We're going to normalize it twice. So heat it up to non-magnetic, let it air cool, heat it up to non-magnetic, air cool, and then after that we're going to be ready for the quenching process. For this we're going to be heating it up to non-magnetic and then a little bit past that, and then we're going to quench it in 130 degree oil. So and then after that we'll do the tempering process in the oven, which we'll talk about when we get there. So let's get started. So since the tip of the blade and the edge side are much thinner than the rest of the blade, I want to point those away from the heat source, and I want the tip of the knife kind of far away from the jet there, because those areas are going to heat up quicker than the rest of the blade, and I want to make sure not to overheat those areas. The tip tends to get like glowing red hot much quicker than the rest of the blade, and if that happens I usually just scoot it up so that the tip is kind of almost coming out the back of the forge there. So you want to make sure you have a really even heat. Once I think it's getting close to non-magnetic, I'm going to grab it and then put it up here on my magnet and make sure that it's not sticking to the blade. And once I reach that point, I'm just going to hang it up and let it air cool. And that's the normalization process. All right, so we'll let that cool there for until it's cool to the touch. And then we'll fire back up the forge and do it once more. Here's my oil. So I need to try to figure out a way how to heat this up. Usually I just, I'll like heat up a bolt in the forge and then just dip that in the oil to heat it up. I wish I had like some kind of camp stove maybe, or something. I'll look around the garage, see what I can come up with. But in order to measure the temperature of the oil, remember I said we need it at 130 degrees. I bought this. This is just a probe thermometer, a K-type. So what I'll do is, this is my first time using it. Before I just kind of guessed. But this time I'm going to be a little more accurate. So I'm just going to put that probe inside the oil and then we'll be able to see once it reaches 130. Alright, so the blade is cooled off. I did another normalization cycle, so this thing is ready to quench. I've got a little janky setup here with the oil. It wasn't quite deep enough to get the full edge submerged, so I just have it on its side there. I'm heating up a bolt in the forge, and I'm just going to dip that in the oil until it reaches 130 degrees. And then we'll stick the blade in the forge, get it up to a little above non-magnetic, and we'll go for the quench. Hopefully everything goes well. This is the thinnest blade I've ever attempted to quench, and I'm really hoping it doesn't warp. If I pull it out of the oil and it's got a little warp in it, I'm going to bring it right over here to the vise, where I have some angle iron here, and I'm just going to stick it right in there, clamp it down, and hopefully as it cools in the vise there, the warp will disappear. So I think we have all our bases covered. I'm going to get the oil up to temperature and then we'll come back. Alright, I've got my oil up to 140. So by the time the blade heats up, that'll probably be just right at 130. Hopefully. About there. Non-magnetic, so we're going a little bit past. Pretty straight. I think we did it, folks. Nice and straight. We'll let it cool down a little bit and then we'll do the file test. See if it got hard. Alright, I think we were successful here, but let's do the file test and make sure the blade is fully cooled down. Now, the best way to test if you've gotten your blade hard is by running a file along the edge here. That's because this steel in the blade that you've just hardened should be harder than the teeth on the file. So when you run it across, it should just skate across and not really dig in at all. So you can see, you can kind of also tell by the sound. not digging in, it's just skating across. You compare that to, say, some mild steel. See the difference? It's biting in. But on this, skating right across. So I think we got a hard blade, guys. Certainly seems hard to me. Cool, we were successful. We didn't have any warps. We got a nice hard blade. So next I'm gonna sand all this off, get it nice and clean again, and then we will move to the oven for the tempering process. The tempering process basically just takes a little bit of the hardness back out of the blade. If you were to leave it like this, it can be a little brittle. You know, the blade could be more prone to chipping or snapping in half. So what happens when you put it in the oven at a low temperature, it takes a little bit of the hardness out of the blade again. Not too much to where it, you know, will get dull quickly, but just enough to make it a little bit more resistant to chipping. So that's what we're gonna do, and let's do it. Here we are, all nice and cleaned up. Obviously we're gonna have a ton more hand sanding once we're tempered, but this just gets off that scale that was formed from the quench off of there. So let's move to the oven. And then after that, we're gonna get this thing nice and pretty and ready for handle skills. So far, so good. I think this is gonna be a pretty good design. I've never made one of these before. Kind of reminds me of almost like a bushcrafty slash kitchen knife vibes. I think just because of this, the way this curves up, I don't know. It kind of reminds me of a kitchen knife a little bit. I'm excited to see it all done. All right, let's get to the oven. All right, so it's time to temper the blade. We're going to preheat the oven to 435. And we're gonna leave it in there for 1 hour. The last batch of knives I made, I was using 5160 steel, and the research that I did showed that you're supposed to leave it in for 1 hour increments, 2 1 hour increments at a lesser temperature. I think it was like 150. But apparently for 1095, it's just 1 hour cycle at 435. So hopefully that's accurate. That was the research that I did. So hopefully that's correct, and let's do it. Okay, we're preheated. What I did is, I'm not sure if this is absolutely necessary, but I just put a piece of angle iron on the tray here just to keep the knife upright so the heat can kind of get all the way around it. I thought it might not have been a great idea to have it laying flat on here. I figured one part of the blade may get hotter than the other. So I think this will ensure that we get an even heat all the way around the blade. So the oven is preheated. Let's stick her in. All right, we'll set a timer for 1 hour, and then we'll pull it out, and we have a finished blade. All right, it's been an hour at 435 degrees. Let's take it out. Here she is, all tempered up. I'm gonna let it cool down and then we'll get to sanding. All right, so our hardening and tempering process went very well. We have a fully hardened and tempered blade here. Now it's time to get some hand sanding done. And I think I'm gonna do something a little different on this blade. My idea is to sand everything, get it all nice and smooth, and then I think I'm gonna throw it in the rock tumbler and get a stonewash finish, and then come back and resand this flat area back to a built sanding finish. So the edge bevel here will be, we'll have a stonewash finish, and then the flat and everything else will have a regular satin built sanded finish. So I think that might be kind of cool. I think that'll be a good contrast, and I've never done it before, so I kind of want to give it a shot. So I don't think I need to, well, yeah, I'll probably just sand everything down to like a 600 grit, and then we'll throw it in the tumbler and see how it turns out. Let's get to sanding. All right, my bevels are sanded to, let's see, what did I get to? A 220 grit. So the reason I'm not concerned about scratching the flat here with the sandpaper while I'm getting the bevels is because I'm gonna lay this flat on my belt grinder, and that's gonna get all the flat, but it's not gonna touch the bevel at all. That's a nice way to just get a nice crisp line between your bevel and your flat areas. So that's pretty nice. You know, you don't have to worry about keeping your sandpaper right in this edge bevel area. So let's put on the belt sander and take care of this flat, and then let's toss it in the rock tumbler. Alright, you guys ready? Look at that. The belt sander really just brings things together. Looks so good. Especially, I think it's going to look great with this stone washed, and then the nice belt sander finish on the flat. Look at that. I'm not real happy with my plunge grinds. They just don't look very good. I tried cleaning them up with a file, but it just seemed like it was making them worse. So I'm hoping the stone washing will kind of cover up some of that blemish. But, you know, it's not the worst of things. I mean, it bothers me, but hopefully it won't bother whoever buys this one. I'm selling these knives relatively cheap just because they're not perfect, but you know, they do take a lot of time, so I can't just give them away. All right, let's throw this in the rock tumbler. I'm almost hesitant to now that it's so nice and shiny and beautiful. I don't know. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good. The stone washing will mask, or help mask, any scratches in the blade as it's being used. So I think it's a good idea. So let's just go for it. All right, here's the tumbler. It's filled with just rocks from my yard. So, yeah. Let's go for it. Spray some WD-40 in here. Lube it up a little bit. Throw the lid on. I guess technically this is not a rock tumbler. This is more of a, you can see, vibratory tumbler. You'll see in a minute. It just kind of just shakes like this. It doesn't really tumble. All right, I think I'm gonna leave this for about an hour. I did a test piece of another blade that I had messed up on. So you can kind of see the stone washing, and this was only about a half an hour. Yeah, let's go in the sunlight and you can see it better. That was only about half an hour, so I think I'll do an hour. I think that'll be good. Maybe even 45 minutes. That does look pretty good like it is. Cool. All right. Here we go. Hopefully it doesn't ruin my blade. Alright folks, we have done the stone wash and I just finished sanding the flat again. Look at that. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it looks real good with that stone washed bevel and then the belt sanded finish flat. Let me know what you guys think. I'm pretty darn happy with it. I'm not sure why there's a dark spot right there, but that's okay. That's just part of the stone washing. I'm really happy. Look at that. Still not really happy with my plunge grinds. It just is what it is. On the next knife, I have another blank of these that I cut out and still have to grind the bevel on. I think on that one I'm going to try to do something differently. I'm not sure what, but I need to do something to clean up those plunge grinds. But all in all, really happy with this. We have a hardened and tempered and fully done blade, ready for the handle. I have some natural canvas micarta coming, and I also have a piece of this really nice, it's like a sea blue and a slightly lighter shade of blue layered micarta that I've used once before, and it looks really nice. So I'll probably do one of these in the natural micarta and the other one in the layered. I think it's gonna look really nice. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys, and make sure you subscribe and like the video. Thank you.